Hello everyone, this is Kira Show here, and uh, yeah, whenever we last left off, Deku had Deku and Melissa had actually came back to UA. Now, the dorm system was put in place after all this happened, but Deku did take Melissa to go meet his mother. Melissa introduced herself to Deku's mom, and she was crying tears of joy that Deku finally met a girl and is actually in a relationship with a girl. And after hearing about how her quirk is basically the opposite of Midoriya's, she would then actually understand this a little bit better and find out why these two are actually they are very friendly with each other and actually are very relatable to each other because they've had similar problems with their quirks because they're exact opposites. Now, after that, Jesus. Anyways, after that, that is whenever All Might would explain to a lot of the students at the dorms that they are going to be, well, not All Might. He would have explained to them probably a week later that they are trying to find the location of the villain's hideout, and it is very hard to find, but Principal Nezu has found possible locations. Now, after that, Nezu would actually begin telling All Might that he has 2 out of 5 possible locations, and 2 of these locations are the Noma factory and the headquarters for the bar. Now, because he knew their quirks, he ran backgrounds, possible identities, so it wasn't really that hard. It was probably just a few sleepless nights for Principal Nezu, along with dealing with stuff while All Might was out of town. Now then, this is whenever Deku and Melissa, they would be training. He's working on meditation along with some physical strength. And she is actually working on trying to use One for All. And she would eventually be able to turn it on. And after she has it on for so long, she would try throwing a punch at Deku after he would have told her to. This would have sent Deku flying and broke her arm. Deku would have got back up, telling her that that was a pretty solid punch and that he actually felt it. He would then be rubbing his cheek as he would look over and see Melissa broke her arm. And she's actually screaming in pain because, yeah, I'm finally having someone not able to control One for All. Now then, this is whenever Deku would actually take Melissa to Recovery Girl, get her arm healed, and Melissa would then begin working on a project to actually control One for All. Because she probably would have had something to control, like a quirk you can't regulate very well, properly, or learn to have. So she can go off of those prototypes and actually create this a bit faster, because she actually understands the quirk and how it works. So this would take her about... She would probably work for about 5 days straight, with Deku helping her on a lot of the designs, and meeting Mei Hatsume. She would have actually got her hero costume designed along with this gear, with a lot of the support class actually helping them with constructing this project. Now, the support class would have actually taken this project and actually work on it full time because of the access Melissa is giving them to gear. They're using things that they think that they would never, they're getting access to things they thought they would only find at pro agencies. And this stuff is basically all donated to them by Melissa Shield, if they can help her create a stabilizer for her quirk. She would have eventually gotten these built, and she would actually fight Deku and train with him using One for All and the stabilizers, along with her light-based quirk, actually wrapping it around them to essentially form a barrier of protection around her stabilizers. So I'm essentially bringing in a very scientific way to actually use the quirk, but since I brought in the two movies idea already, it's not that far-fetched for this to actually be possible, because it was shown to be possible with Deku in canon. Yeah, for people who think that was planned out, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I just finally figured out what ship I wanted to do, and it was out of the ones I have not done yet. Now, after this is whenever, this is whenever All Might would come to them, and he would ask young Midoriya to actually help him take on the villains. He would say that if he's coming along, then Melissa should too, because she figured out a good way to regulate her quirk. She would come along, and these two would be the ones to go. Bakugo's somewhat mad, but he understands that Deku's more powerful because he got his entire worldview and his entire ego shattered from Deku, which was a good, good building experience. Remember, kids, trauma builds character. Now then. Ow. Now then. Deku would have told everyone that if it's just the bar and it's just those villains All Might was talking about, then he's got this. He would then power up into his assault mode and actually create the armor on his chest, along with the actual visor itself. So he's got his entire body up to his face and hair encased in the darkness. Along with the marking that is actually... Does this picture have it? Nope. Yeah, like that. The marking is actually covering half of Deku's face and the rest of his body. Like right here, it's covering that half of his face down to his neck, where it's actually fully spread out and has basic armor of darkness covering his body. So his hearts don't actually get punctured. Now then, this is whenever Deku, with those giant claws on his feet that he actually can use in this mode, he would immediately just kick open the door of the villain hideout, asking them if they were looking for somebody. Now, everyone would be talking, saying that he looks like a pretty good villain, and as soon as Shigaraki would turn around with his pineapple pizza, he would drop it out of the floor and immediately just nope the fuck out of there by jumping out of a window. Yes, he had pineapple pizza and a glass of milk. Now, I really hope that just made somebody cringe, because my whole running gag for any what if is Shigaraki always eating pineapple pizza. Now, Deku watching as the pineapple pizza and the glass of milk that hit the ground, he would look at it and immediately just wince in utter agony, taking out the villains with needles and immediately flying out the window. Shigaraki would have been teleported away by All For One, and then Melissa, Shield, and Deku, along with All Might, would immediately go to the other location. Now, Deku and Melissa are actually slowing down to keep up with All Might, but he doesn't need to slow down as much as in canon. So he actually gets there fast. And I just disconnected my mic. Now, I just figured that out. Deku and Melissa would arrive at the place with All Might, and Melissa would probably have a pair of goggles or something like that strapped to her face, to not only keep the wind out of her eyes, but to also regulate her tech so that she can tell whenever she needs to use one for all and whenever she doesn't. So if the tech is malfunctioning, she doesn't need to use one for all, or she can't use it very much yet. But also, in case her tech is working, she can just recklessly throw it around. Now then, this is whenever they would arrive, and people on the news, well, people that were watching the news would see that the boy who won the sports festival, and some people from Class 1A would recognize them. 1C is saying that that's the girl that is in their class, right? But she's not in our dorms. What's she doing there with them? I feel like I'm holding my breath a lot. Okay. I take off my glasses to record, but it really does not help my eyes. Now then, this is whenever Deku and Melissa would actually use their quirks and fight against All For One, as All Might, he's trying to hold back the shockwaves to prevent civilians from getting injured. Now, as they are fighting, this is whenever him and Melissa are fighting with All For One. All For One would be impressed that All Might would give his quirk to such a weak child in his mind, stating that even then, he's just given him another person to kill. Deku would just immediately stop All For One's fist, saying that if he has someone to kill, you have to get through me first. All For One would call Deku an insolent child, stating that he has no idea what is truly going on. All For One would then do the famous villain rants. Yeah. You don't get enough of those in the superhero backstory, or a superhero fight, or an anime. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this is whenever Deku and Melissa would start fighting with All For One, and Deku is always... he's essentially trying not to be lethal, so he's actually just going with standardized punches and things like that, but All For One would probably have a quirk that can take a bunch of hits, and Melissa is just recklessly throwing around 100% at All For One. All For One would eventually, whenever she does throw a fist at him, catch her hand and actually break one of the gauntlets. He would then start crushing one of her arms, saying that she had a good run, but now he will finally get rid of that pesky little quirk. He would then try putting his hand on her head, but as soon as he would have done that, Deku would have gotten angry enough and cut off his hand, saying that all he knows about you is that you can take quirks. Now, I know she's fine. Well, I don't know how you take their quirks, but I'm guessing it has something to do with. From what All Might explained, it might be like Aizawa's, but more permanent. Now, All For One, not knowing who that is, would say maybe, but if you don't know how my quirk works, then how do you know I haven't already taken it? He would say that I feel like something like that might be traumatizing to someone. It might really get under their skin. It might get them angry. It might get them sad. Or you might just unleash wrath. Now, as soon as Deku said this, he would have told Melissa that she needs... well, he would tell her that what he's about to do might actually send him over the breaking point. And he needs her to stay... well, he needs her to keep a leash on him. She would ask what he means, and he would just tell her he loves her. as he would immediately just start screaming. Well, he wouldn't even do that. He would immediately power down his darkness and put his hand into his chest, ripping out one of his hearts. And Melissa's screaming at Deku along with a lot of the people nearby. And as All For One is taken aback by this. Now, as Deku is actually what people think Deku's bleeding out. This is whenever Deku would immediately get back up off the ground. His skin would change to pigmentation. He would grow twice as big. He would grow 4 arms, and his legs would turn into spikes, as his hair grows and his eyes become bloodshot red. Now, he would just look at All For One, and All For One would just immediately think that he doesn't know what is going on, but he is very frightened right now. Deku would immediately charge at All For One, and whenever he does do this, he would then take out All For One's arm. The one that has at least regenerated by now, that he's throwing punches with. He would have stopped it, tore it off, and immediately began dismembering All For One like he is... Have you ever seen what kids do with their action figures? Deku would just be holding All For One by the face, as he would dimensionally just started saying that as a kid he always had those little action figures. And one thing he always liked doing with them is seeing how far he can pull before things pop. He would then immediately just grab All For One's arms with his 2 free ones that aren't holding his head and just start pulling All For One's arms off as he begins to scream. He would then twist All For One's legs the same way and just rip them off at the kneecaps. He would then ask All For One, saying that you have a regeneration quirk, right? All Might took your head off once. What happens if I do that again? Except this time from the neck down. What would happen to you? Now, All For One's just begging for his life, saying that you're crazy. There's no way you can become a hero. Deku would just laugh at All For One, saying that you call me crazy, yet you send people to do your own job, your own dirty work. He's just screaming this at All For One, as he would then say that he's going to end him once and for all. Now, before he can actually do anything, this is whenever Melissa would tell Deku that he needs to stop and calm down. Deku, he doesn't want to listen to her. So she's telling him to look at him. Now, he would grab her with his 4th arm and pick her up. And she's looking at him, just saying that you need to calm down and you need to come back to me, Izuku. You need to calm down. You've won. We beat him. It's okay. I know what it's like not being able to hold back, but I know what it's like getting angry to the point where you feel like the world can break, or the world's made of paper. And then she would just tell Deku she loves him, as Deku's eyes would just return to normal, and he would then just shrink back down. Now, whenever he does shrink back down, he would actually find that he feels a heartbeat in his chest again. That feeling in his heart. Because Deku, he would be able to distinguish the heartbeat in his actual chest aside from his other hearts. So the one he thought he only had one. He would then say that it's back. Now, the reason why it's back is because Deku would have a healing factor. And as soon as he patched it, whenever the heart got damaged, whenever he patched it with darkness, it essentially stopped it from healing. And Recovery Girl's way of healing it made it heal improperly. So Deku would actually just fall to his knees, crying, as she would comfort him, and All For One would be taken to Tartarus prison. Now, people would not know All For One's secret. All For One. All Might's secret. Well, that wall looks really nice. I might put my forehead into it. Anyways, after that, the Mirio fight would go very differently, with Deku immediately disassembling the big three and taking them all out. Melissa took Mineta's place in 1A, meaning balance is restored to the universe. Now, for the provisional license, Melissa and Deku are actually the two biggest names in the exam. Because Melissa's hero name would be something holy, like an angel, or probably something like that. Because I want to say she could probably make Wings of Light, because it's the exact same like Deku's, but with light instead of darkness. Now, after that, people would try and avoid Midoriya as much as possible, but people would still want to attack him. Toga would actually be one of the people who would greet them at the front gate, with that guy who's basically a more mature version of Deku with a Thought Froppy costume. Yes, I just said that. A Thought Froppy costume. Now then, you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. Please tell me no one else has thought of it before. Now, after that, this is whenever people would have avoided them, but Deku would get his provisional license along with Melissa, because they would have taken out a lot of the people for the ball throw. The whole dodgeball thing that they did with the 3 balls and the dots. Todoroki would have gotten his character development. And whenever they were doing the whole rescue hero thing, Deku didn't use his assault mode. He actually came down into somewhat like this mode, but without this whole thing covering his face. And he does wear his hero outfit along with more of this style top, but without the purple. Is that? Okay, yeah, that's a sleeve, so that's like more of a jacket. Without the purple jacket and the neck thing. And without the tattoo right here. Or the gauntlets. So he'd still be wearing this, but he would just have this top on. Along with the wrapping right here. So he would get his license, and yeah. Anyway, you guys, this what if is actually going to be, or this part is going to be the final part to this what if, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And I've seen Meliodis' new form, and I was going to give it to him. But I feel like if I just give him that form now, it might be more powerful. Well, he might be more powerful. And this is Meliodis' assault form, not his ultimate form. Because these two are vastly different things. Now, I did give him the Endura form, because it's essentially his quirk being more classified as a transformation. So that would be his Endura transformation. Now, I'm going to be recording What If Deku Was Riddick later, because these what ifs take forever to post, and by the time I get done with posting this one, I will be recording, which would probably be about 20 to 10 minutes from now, which is be when I'm recording. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoyed.